So the big question is this: how do young adults in their 20s and 30s go from simply dreaming great dreams to having the courage to go after them? What if there was a structure that we could go through so that so many others have used to take these ideas and turn them into dreams and bring them into reality? We talk to those who are in the midst of the dream to learn how to own our dreams, to clarify them, to look at the current reality of our moment, to discover our passion, develop a pathway, identify the right people, be willing to pay the price, develop tenacity, and have it be fulfilling and significant. If you are looking to dream great dreams, or you have a dream in your mind and you're wanting to make it a reality, then this podcast is for you. My name is Daniel Baarns, and I have the incredible privilege of introducing my sister, Carrie Baarns. Carrie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast for this very first episode.
You are very welcome. Thank you for including me.
Yeah. So the first thing that I want, or the first question that I want to ask you is, I believe that most of us have been given specific gifts or different things that happened in our childhood that we just kind of learned how to do. And it was almost innate, like there are certain gifts or skills or abilities. And I'm curious if there are any skills or things like that that you are seeing in what you're currently doing that have affected how you are today. And actually, before you do that, though, can you give me a quick, like what your current focus is and a little bit about where you are in your stage of life?
Oh, okay.
Switching that.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm just thinking where to start. Let's see. So where I am right now, in general, in my career and everything, or
career, and then also your endeavors.
Got it. So I work at an academic publishing house. I work on college textbooks, affordable college textbooks, very important caveat. And I have been in publishing now, this May it will be 10 years, because I started 3 days before I turned 21. So as an intern. So I am now a senior manager here and have been for a couple of years at Cognella Academic Publishing. And the endeavor that you are referring to is my art that I have started doing. I started that in, I want to say January 2021 was when that started. So, and I know it's just April now, and I know this will air later, but at this time it's April. So a year and 3 months-ish, question mark. And I work with dichroic glass. And dichroic glass is glass that has a special coating applied. NASA invented it. And it allows light to pass through. One wavelength is reflected, another one passes through. So dichroic colors, so two color. In whether, I don't remember if that's Latin or Greek, but it's one of those. I've been working with dichroic glass then, for a year and 3 months. And as far as I know, there is only really one other artist doing something like this. Dichroic glass is normally used for jewelry making, making little knickknacks, tchotchkes, and they're beautiful, but it's mostly actual glass work, like you're cutting and tempering and firing it. And that is not what I am doing. I'm sticking pieces to a medium and hanging them on a wall. Mostly my walls are, and I've just kind of started to think about making it an actual business, because I've gotten a bunch of inquiries, because I post on social media because it makes me happy to look at, and I think it will for other people too. And that has proved to be the case. And I've had a number of people ask if I would ever sell pieces of my dichroic art. And so I thought, gosh, I guess maybe I should get serious about this, as of really only 3 weeks ago, maybe, that I had been kind of working towards that because I entered an art competition last, I want to say August or September, and I won third place.
Wow.
And so at that point, I actually started working on a website because I was like, I guess I should do that. I didn't really think I necessarily would win. So I think I was being a little avoidant there by not designing a website prior, because like I was like, I don't want to jinx it. And so then I did, and then I was like, okay, yeah.
So I'm going to share. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll actually be able to see her website right now and see some of what this looks like as well. So if you're just listening to this, go to YouTube and watch, at least figure out where this is in the timestamp and watch some of this, or just go to carriebaarns.com, BAARNS, Bravo, Alpha, Alpha, Roger,
Nancy, Sam.
As our father would often say. So I'm curious, so kind of one of the things that I think is super important for most young adults or anyone in their 20s and 30s that's looking to start something, you kind of hit on something where you entered this competition, but you were like kind of almost, it seems like there's, which this is common, some level of self-doubt or some level of just like internal turmoil of like, can I actually do this, and will anyone even care? And I would love for you to walk through like a little bit maybe of even that process of it's been about a year and some time that you've been kind of messing with this and going, okay, I think I kind of like this. Can you kind of walk me through where that started in terms of just like messing with it and then kind of starting to show people, and what that process was like as you're kind of building a bit more maybe internal confidence that this could even be a thing? Because I think there's a lot of people that have an idea that they've kind of been dabbling with a little bit, but are really uncertain.
Yeah. I remember when I was trying to think about what I wanted to do for college, what I wanted to major in, running through different things with mom, I think, in the study, and being like, oh, musician, oh, artist, and mom being like, those are all things that do not make money, probably, love you, but also. And so I remember having that like, like I want to make sure that I can make a living. I'm maybe not necessarily one of those people who's just like, I'm just going to go for it and I'll live the life of an artist. Right from the get-go, I was a little bit more practically minded, I guess. And so I found something that I absolutely love doing, working in publishing. So it wasn't like a big deal or like, oh, I missed out on this dream of being an artist and now here we are. That's not like that necessarily. I also have issues with not wanting to necessarily undertake serious creative things unless I feel like I could be really good at it. Sometimes I'm really good with it, like with skateboarding and with freestyle skateboarding, no problem. Happy to be terrible at it. I know that's part of the process because that's an athletic thing for me. And for some reason that is totally separate from artistic endeavors, even though there's a lot of artistry in it. But so this is how we compartmentalize things, right? So when I was browsing Pinterest, fast forward 10-ish plus years, browsing Pinterest, looking for art to put on my walls. I had thought about, maybe I paint something because that's cheaper, maybe than some of the artists that I really like. So I just started looking at different art for inspiration, and I firmly believe that Pinterest has the best algorithm of like anything. I think they'll rule the world one day just with that, because they can figure out kind of what you're looking for and show you relevant things that you didn't necessarily think of or know what they were called, but they're close, and they do such a good job with that. I cannot give their engineers enough credit for that, because that is how I found this. I was looking for art and curating a selection of things that just inspired me and things that I really liked, not because I was like necessarily. I had this idea of like, maybe I want to paint something, but maybe like I actually had in mind, I don't think I've ever told anyone this, but I actually had in mind that I also like to cook and bake. And a while ago, back when we all went to the office for work, before the pandemic, we would have these cooking and baking challenges. I swear this is relevant, I promise. I and there was this competition where it was, I think it was something chocolate, it was the ingredient challenge. And I had in my mind that I could create this chocolate cake and then on top of it, make, here's where it connects, stained glass candy, that shards that could go on top of it. And because I had seen people melt like Jolly Ranchers, transparent sugary candy, melt it in an oven, break it with a hammer, and use those shards in artistic ways on top of desserts.
Oh.
And I had seen that and I was like, that's so cool. I love that. Love that for all of us.
And was it Sour Pouch? What was the candy?
It was Jolly Ranchers.
Jolly Ranchers.
Yeah. So a hard candy. So I had seen this kind of stained glass effect of baking. And I was like, that's so cool. And I know that that wandered through my mind somehow. It can't be a coincidence. But this is how all these things connect and why it's important to kind of do a lot of different things with your hobbies, because eventually that all kind of comes together. So anyway, I had in my mind creating this piece of like art because of that like idea of a cake that I never made. Mind you, I never actually did that. I just had it in mind. But I thought about it and then I thought, oh, I wonder if you could actually like create material like that for art. So I started researching different mediums. How could you take like a gel medium that would dry, add like tint it, with color, like a pourable acrylic almost, but one that has more body to it, so that you could pull it into shapes and then have this kind of like thorn effect or this like broken glass effect. I just didn't realize that what I was kind of working towards was glass. That somehow completely eluded me. Seems obvious in hindsight, but so I was talking with an author who's very artistic in publishing, working with one of my authors who has a book on media studies. And I actually have a painting by a roommate of a student of his, because student took this professor's class, raved about it to their roommate, who was an art major. Art major was like, ooh, I want to go to this class, and attended some lectures just because it's a really big school and you could do that and get sat in, and was inspired, created a painting. So this author and I talk about art a lot. I have a print by this student as a result in my house. I would talk about art with this guy, this professor, because it related very heavily to the content of his text, and trying to build a relationship with him, because that's my job. That's part of my job, to build relationships with authors. And so in the process, he was like, yeah, that sounds cool. Like, yeah, like, let me know. Like, he's very experimental. So I had that kind of encouragement, but it wasn't like he was like with me every step of the way, but it was just, a little bit of that nudge of like, yeah, sounds cool. Like, you should try that, whatever it is. Interesting, just try it. Just try something and see what happens. And so all of that is going on in the background by the time I arrive at Pinterest looking for art for my walls. And all of that somehow coalesces into me finding artwork by this artist named Chris Wood, a female named Chris Wood. I believe that's her. I believe she has she/her pronouns. I've not seen anything other than that. So, and she worked with this substance called dichroic glass. And I was like, that is incredible. Her work is amazing. I felt so inspired by it. And I just thought, I had already been looking at like opalescent things, at like transparent materials, iridescent things. And because I had bought a little side table that's acrylic with an iridescent coating that I love. And so I was just looking at artwork that complemented it. I found that table through Pinterest. So I'm just a walking ad for Pinterest. I do hashtag not an ad. I don't work for them in any capacity. But anyway, that's how that kind of came together. I saw her pieces, I literally thought, I feel like I could add to that conversation. Because that's what it felt like to me. It felt like she was starting a conversation with light and color. And I had always, that's an exaggeration. For some time at that point, I had been trying to figure out how could you have color that was so vivid? Okay, like really concentrated acrylics. Yeah, that would work. But just like, I really liked that super, super intense color. And when I saw her work, I was like, there it is. You're not working with traditional, pigmented, you're actually using light. And that's why it's so intense. So that's how I found this medium, or it found me. And then your question also, you asked like, how did I kind of start messing with it? I researched what she used for her pieces. I tried to figure out how the heck did she do that? Because it's very technical. It seems like she has used powder coated aluminum sheets, huge pieces these are. And she's taken, I would estimate probably 2-inch square acrylic dichroic, not dichroic acrylic. So that coating has been applied to acrylic, which I've not seen anywhere else. So I don't know if she's firing it herself with a team.
I don't know what acrylic is. So can you explain that? Because if I'm somewhat familiar and I have no idea what that means.
Oh, acrylic is basically the way I think of it is like a high-end plastic. It's a polymer that it's clear. Well, it can be colored, but it's plastic.
And then it's got some sort of a colored thing, so essentially it reflects light.
The coating that's applied is transparent mostly. It is once you get it into any kind of light, you will see iridescence, but the coating is actually either a metal or quartz oxide that's been applied at very high heat, as I understand it. I have not done this myself. There are only a few vendors that actually make this stuff, which is why I don't actually know where she's sourcing hers, but she's in the UK, I believe. So it might just be a difference there because of what's available to her. But in any case, I started researching, how do I get my hands on this stuff? And finally found a vendor, a specialty glass company. After a bunch of research on Etsy and just the wilds of the internet, found dichroic glass. And I was like, perfect, good enough. What am I going to stick it to? I don't feel like I can just like order sheets of metal, white metal. And I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. So I was just like, okay, canvas. And I used a gallery depth canvas, which is, I think, 1.5 inches deep. So it's very, it looks really nice. And it's stretched like cotton canvas, ordered from Amazon. And I realized that I wanted to have the freedom to move pieces around, unlike painting where you swipe it on and that's where it is. You either start over or you work with it. As far as I know, there's no real like erasing that you can do with painting. No, not as I understand it. And so I figured, oh, maybe I could use like some sort of like a putty or something to where I could stick it to the canvas, perpendicular to the canvas, and have it like not show. And so that's what I tried to do. Then I found some putty. There is no clear putty that I can find that is meant for like posters or things like that. Only white, but that was fine. So that's what I worked with. It's like a tack it kind of poster putty. And so that's how I started messing with that. And I just started sticking pieces to canvas and being like, that looks cool. I like this. And a lot of my pieces, a number of the ones that are on my website that you just that you saw in that carousel at the bottom. What I also liked was that if I didn't like how a piece turned out, I could just literally take all the pieces off and start over again. Because dichroic glass is not cheap. It is fairly pricey. It's a specialty item, not that many glass companies actually make it. So yeah, so it ain't cheap, for me at least. And so I wanted to feel like I could, almost like an Etch-a-Sketch, be able to like erase it and start over again if I was just like, yeah, it's not working for me. And so a lot of the pieces that I've made, I actually have. I would take a photo of it, feel like, okay, like that's good, but it's not there. It's not really exactly what I want it to be. So I would take it apart. So some of the pieces on there, they don't exist anymore. They're like, okay, I'm not Rembrandt or anything like that, but the way that you would see like old masters, you know, how sometimes they'll X-ray paintings and be like, there's another one behind it, because some artists had to reuse canvases because they're also, you know, they definitely weren't cheap back then in the, I don't know, 1400s or so.
So
anyway, yeah.
Something that I've been fascinated by or thought about in this is, it seemed like growing up with you as my older sister, you were very artistic in terms of like drawing. And I remember you played piano, I think, like not like with no real formal training, but could kind of just do that. So it seemed like there was a kind of bend, I don't know if that's the right word, but like some sort of a flair towards that. And also like words and like all these things are kind of connecting together. And were any of those things, like it seems like there's almost an arc of all those different things, but where did that, like, was there an initial, like a first time where you were like, oh, I can draw, or oh, I can do this, or like you played piano? Like, I know nothing is like you do it the first time and you're great at it. Like art, like most things I am learning, is something you can learn to get better at. And so I'm curious though, it did seem like to me, of course, I was also younger and I don't remember a ton about my childhood, so that's partially to blame. But I'm curious if there was like a moment in your life that inspired you when you were younger that was kind of the, like, at least the, hey, I should start or draw or do these different things.
Well, I'm trying to think. I know one of the things I really enjoyed doing on rainy days, I remember especially the mom trying to have us not get it like all muddy and wet and out in the rain and stomping and, you know, digging holes in the mud and all of that fun stuff. In an effort to kind of corral that energy, sometimes she would set up this big easel. I don't know, you must have been too little for this. I think it was just David and I who would she would set it up in the garage, and it was taller than we were at the time, this great big chalkboard, and then she would put big sheets of paper over it and clip them as you could do. It was meant for that. And we would paint with watercolors, really cheap watercolors that she had gotten. And I really enjoyed drawing. I have a giant binder, like I want to say it's like a 4-inch, 5-inch binder that I still have of my drawings throughout time, starting from like 2 to, I don't know, 10 maybe. But I never felt like I was that good at drawing when I was younger. Like I would look at what some of my peers could draw and despair. I was just like, oh, the realism, oh, the artistry, oh, and I didn't really feel like I was that good at it. So when I was about 14, I took a drawing class at Mission College, and I got better at it. I mean, I learned more about like the technicality of it, and I liked it, but I still don't feel like, looking back, like there's some cool things that I made as part of that I have in like learning to work with charcoal and learning to work with pencil and with ink. Great instructor. And I still remember very vividly some of the assignments that she had for us. But so that was, yeah, when I was 14. I did play piano by ear, yeah, because I thought it was faster to listen to something and just figure it out. But it also was a fun matching game to me. It felt like audio what's that? I'm trying to think what that like a matching game, really, like where you turn over two cards and like, they match. And to me, that was the audio version of that. It's kind of a weird example, but that's kind of how it felt, just matching. So I guess those are kind of flashbulb moments in my budding artistry career, but I would not by any stretch of the imagination say like, oh yes, looking back, it's clear we could see her genius from an early age. Like, yeah, I was creative and I really liked that work, but I don't think that I was doing anything so profound or so different from anyone else that it was really like, oh, we can see she's going places with this, in my opinion. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And I get to learn. Yeah, I think I remember seeing that easel in the garage. And
it is. It's still down there in the garage.
Okay, so that's helpful because I never knew why we had that.
For doing things.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Did that help answer your question?
It did. And I think, so there's like those little moments, or one of the things that I'm trying to think through and summarize is it seems like it's a lot of things that almost in and of themselves do not matter. Like a Jolly Rancher on a cake doesn't technically matter. Trying to corral 4 or 10-year-old, whatever, Carrie inside of rainy garage. But all those things put together, plus like plus a little bit of inspiration from Pinterest and your work was just enough, and that encouragement from a professor who was somewhere in that realm.
Yeah.
And that was enough. Like, what was like you had to order the glass? Like, walk me through the first, like, okay, I need to order canvas and order the glass, like the first thing where you were like, this is expensive and it might not work and I don't know if I even care. Like maybe that, like, because that's kind of the origin of the artist that you're now in the process of becoming. But even just that first one, maybe walk me through that.
Yeah, I think and also sort of addressing your point before that, I have heard that in order to be a good writer, you have to read a lot because you have to fill your mind with as many words as possible so that you can then have that in your kind of bank to pull out. And I think that what you're getting at is I had a lot of things that I was putting in my bank, maybe subconsciously at points, or downplaying to myself, again, their importance necessarily. But I was putting a lot of artistry and artistic things and appreciation for it into my artistic bank account, I guess. But to answer the question that you actually asked me, I recall really studying Chris Wood's pieces and looking at what it said. And obviously there's some trade secrets in there, because I don't know exactly how she attached her dichroic acrylic to her aluminum. I believe that she has a whole team. I believe she's actually cut into the metal so that the pieces can actually slot flat into it, or slot completely into it. So there's no seam. It looks very seamless, but that's a guess. I'm not actually sure. So I did spend a lot of time though, just looking at her work and trying to figure out, how did you do that? And I do know that that kind of somehow connects to that drawing class I took, because as part of that class, we had to pick an artist to mimic a piece of their work every week. That was part of the assignment, an ongoing thing. We had to reproduce their work usually in much smaller format and in whatever medium we wanted. And I was usually using pencil. And I had picked Rembrandt. I think that's why that name came to mind earlier. But the idea was, you have to study how someone who is really, really practiced at this, see how they do their art, work through the steps, what it would take to reproduce something great, something that we deem as having just a kind of cultural relevance and significance and worth, and figure out, just work through that process of mimicking it, so that once you get on your own and you want to do your own thing, you have good technique kind of built in, hopefully, at that point. So that was kind of the point of the assignment. And so during that, back to again your actual question, that first figuring out, how did she do this? What did she do? And how could I do it in a way that works for me, that is affordable? And how could I get close to that while, again, kind of adding to the conversation and not just copying what she's doing, because she is a master. And I'm not going to be able, just mimicking her work isn't going to necessarily advance the conversation to me. And so I remember looking at that, just studying all the different angles, every different photo I could find of her work online, and then just Googling every combination of things that I could think of to find dichroic glass, because it was hard to find. It really was, or I found it, but it wasn't like, normally dichroic glass is sold in huge sheets for the most part, not always, but a lot of it is sold by the sheet, because that's what the makers who actually apply that coating, that's what they sell it in. They don't cut it themselves, at least from what I understand. They will sell that to other people, other vendors, whether individuals or vendors, who then might cut it themselves and resell that. So it was kind of figuring out, who can I buy this from and how much does it cost, and what do I actually need? How many pieces do I need? I found a vendor initially who sold it in 1/2-inch squares, assorted coating types, basically the assorted colors. And I want to say per pack, so it was a pack of 20 pieces of these little 1/2-inch squares, fairly thick. I want to say an 1/8, it might have been more than that, an 1/8 of an inch, but I don't know off the top of my head. So I didn't really know what I didn't know, so I figured I'd just order some of these, because they were squares, they were small squares, close enough.
Yeah.
Okay. And then yeah, it was just a lot of Googling to figure out, like, what's the where, how.
Did you already have the canvas, or did you have to buy that too? Or
Yep, I had to buy everything. I did not have any canvases. I knew that canvases were expensive. I had asked Barry, that professor, I had asked him where he got his canvases, because he works in huge media. He works on like room-sized canvases, absolutely enormous art installations. So I was like, where do you get this stuff? You know, and so he had said, oh, well, I usually get it from, you know, this or that art website. They're usually pretty good. I found out that shipping canvases tends to be expensive because there's a lot of packaging that goes into that in making sure that they arrive undamaged. And so the best option I could find on that, everything else was it's so expensive for shipping that I was like, okay, Amazon it is, because free shipping. So that's so kind of by default, just by price matching, like, okay, and what I first and foremost, I just want to do a big piece that will fill that empty wall, that all that, you know, that I'd been trying to fill with whatever art that I was going to create. And so I found a pretty big one, and I want to say it's like 36 by 48. It's pretty big. But I should have looked that up.
4 feet.
Yeah, I want to say it is exactly that, but I'd have to look at it. So I was looking, so kind of by necessity, it ended up being Amazon. And then because I was already on Amazon, that's where I kind of researched that poster putty, and I was like, okay, well, I guess this is well reviewed. And so I just kind of looked at what was around and just figured I'd try at that point. And then I remember it arrived. I remember looking at the glass and being like, whoa, this is cool. And just kind of sticking it to a canvas. And there was the first piece I did, again, that big one, is of, kind of looks like a cityscape. To me, it was a cityscape at night, even though it's on white canvas. And I didn't realize until I was partway through that I was sort of doing something that looked a fair amount like the Gossip Girl intro. The Gossip Girl, the intro is really, really short for that TV show. Good on them. It's like 10 seconds long. And so I realized partway through this piece, like, this kind of looks like it's just like a black background and kind of hazy shapes and colors, and you can tell it's like it's New York at night, kind of blown out, so those lights are really like big, but it comes together and kind of resolves into the Gossip Girl logo. My art kind of looks like that moment before it resolves into the logo. And so that is the reason why it is named You Know You. It's with a K-N-O-W, You Know You, because of the dichroic, both sides of it being like equivalent but not. And there was this sort of divide in my head of you knowing yourself and all the facets of yourself, and how you can have so many things that you don't necessarily know are a part of you until you explore them, but they're all still you. So the theme of Gossip Girl as that logo resolves, and the voice of Kristen Bell, the voiceovers, and who am I? That's one secret I'll never tell. You know you love me, XOXO, Gossip Girl. But she says, you know you love me. And that's where I took that piece from, You Know You. And that kind of idea of reflection, again, on yourself, and the literal and figurative play on words of reflection, that glass reflects, but it also passes through. And so I was really big on naming my pieces. That was something that I really love doing. Making those names as multifaceted, literally, as possible, so they just have layers of meaning. And so that's kind of how that piece coalesced in this idea of Blade Runner and Star Wars prequels, futuristic cities, and also Gossip Girl New York at night. And then this idea of like reflection on self and getting to know the facets of yourself, looking through yourself, looking in yourself, other people looking at you, but ultimately you being the one who's responsible for knowing yourself. So so that kind of was in my head, those different images from different films or TV. Because yeah, I had started with a scene from the second prequel. I always forget what it's called, but I love prequel memes. For Star Wars, there's a attempted assassination, and the assassin escapes into the city, and I think that scene is very heavily inspired by Blade Runner. This just like, why are futuristic cities? Why is it always dark and raining? Like, it just is. But it looks so cool because then you have all of these colors and lights and reflections, and oh, it reflects the tortured angst of the main character, and you know, all that jazz. So that's kind of how that first piece came together, all that research and just kind of, I don't know, try it, I guess. This is this Amazon is cheapest for this, and this person seems to make squares, and so guess I'll do that.
Yeah.
And
what was that initial cost, just even monetarily, if you were to ballpark?
That canvas, I want to say that ran me like $60.
And then the glass and putty.
The putty was really cheap. That's like $5 or $10.
Okay.
And I'm actually just using the last of it now, so it's
says with
lasted me a
excitement.
while. I'm actually going to order more like tonight. And the glass itself for that 20 pack, I ordered, I want to say 4 of them. It was a lot. I 4 or 6, because I started counting how many pieces Chris Woods were, and it was immense, like hundreds of pieces, hundreds and hundreds. And I was like, okay, probably not going to be that like intricate to start with, but I did order a number of, I want to say about 80 pieces of it, 60 or 80 pieces. And each pack, I want to say, was in the $12 to $15 range. That vendor was cheaper. Eventually, I bought all of their stock of clear dichroic, and they did not restock.
Oh no.
So they let me know, hey, you bought the last of it. We're not doing any more of it. And I was like, oh no. And so then I had to go find another vendor. But at that time, I was ordering from that vendor. And so yeah, it was 12 or 15 bucks times 4, 15, 30, 45, 60, maybe $60 for glass. So not like insignificant, maybe total 140.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
ish. So not like huge, but enough for me to be like, okay, like we hope this works out.
Yeah. You want to actually do something and enjoy it, but also there's a little bit of skin in the game, so to speak.
Definitely.
And I guess I'm kind of curious also in this process, specifically what inspired you to enter into the contest? Because I do know, the listeners may not know, but you are a pretty accomplished poem writer. I don't know what is the technical title for that?
Poet.
There you go. Poemist. Also, the second Star Wars is Attack of the Clones. I meant to tell that.
Thank you.
But so did that have any connection to entering your piece in that?
In that art contest?
Yeah. Or how did you even hear about it? Like, also, what was that process like? And I guess even more to that, because I think like all the technical stuff is great and it's important. But I'm also curious what the like I think I'm most curious about the internal narrative along the process of like oh, this is really cool. Oh crap, what if I actually do something with it? Oh, I could enter it in, but then I got to build a website and do all this other crap that I don't really want to do. Like, if you can remember those things, I would actually love to hear that, because I think that's probably the thing that most of us relate to, is I have a thing I want to do, but then if I do the thing I'm thinking about doing, then I have to do these things that are really kind of uncomfortable, and I got to figure all this stuff out that I don't know how to do, and there's just a lot of self-doubt. I think that I experience, that most of us experience. So what was that like, of choosing, I guess, really focusing on this competition and kind of the internal narrative that you were kind of, I'm imagining, fighting through, or maybe it was easy for you, or like, what, walk me through that internal process, and maybe what helped you, or what was the hindrances?
Yeah, you're bringing up a good point about that I have entered and been published a number of times with my poetry. And one of the things that my poetry teacher at Cal Lutheran in college or university had taught me that was so influential, similar to that writing. Actually, I think I was probably referencing partly her when I said that the whole like filling your mind with words. Part of that is from that professor, and part of it was yeah, not just filling your mind with words, but also when you create something, that it should refer to other things. The best poetry is not just in itself. I don't know how to put it exactly. The best poetry directs your gaze to other art, is what I learned from her. And so poetry that references other things, other works of art, whether that's paintings, whether that's, books or other poems, songs, referring to other great works of art helps position your poetry within a conversation. And that kind of idea of referring to other things is probably why my pieces, my acrylic pieces, have so many, well, I was thinking of this, when I was creating it. For the contest itself, yeah, probably the process of having entered poetry contests before, and winning or being published, that probably had some effect on my esteem, but I don't remember. It was certainly not conscious. I didn't enter that competition thinking like, oh yeah, I got this in the bag. I had a lot of self-doubt, in part because I was trying to figure out how to photograph it. How do I convey what this even looks like? I'm not a professional photographer. Like, I'm using my Note 8, which still has a fantastic camera. It's really awesome. But at the same time, trying to figure out like, where does my art even fit in these categories? Because there's like paintings and drawings. And so mine, eventually I entered it into the 3-dimensional and sculpture portion, because I was like, I guess that's it. Like, it's not exactly a sculpture, it's not, but it is 3-dimensional, so I guess that's what it is. So that's where I put it. That's what I entered. But I remember definitely trying to figure out, how do I represent my art in a way that seems like professional. I saw other people with their sculpture and other 3-dimensional art photographed like in really cool ways, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't really know what, I have no idea, so I'll just photograph it as it hangs on the wall and crop it, and hopefully that works. So that's what I did. But I definitely had the doubts as far as like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, the rules for that competition, and a lot of art competitions, are pretty stringent. They tend to say like, we do not want to see anything extraneous, not a frame, not a hand, nothing else. We're here for the art, and that is all we want to see when you enter that photo. And so I was like, how do I do like, I don't know. But then there's like exceptions for 3-dimensional art. And like, I was afraid of just being disqualified because I didn't photograph it right. Or I had, like a wall showing, but I was like, how do I show that it's dimensional if I don't, include that part, if I crop too close? So that was, I think, one of the like scariest parts was like, are they gonna look at my work? Not that I would ever know, but look at my work, the judges, this faceless panel of judges. Are they gonna look at it and be like, what an amateur? She didn't even know how to crop this. My gosh, what is she even thinking? And that was kind of the narrative in my head, was like, oh, these, serious art people, critics, whoever is on that board of decision makers, that they would just be like, oh, she doesn't even know how to crop right. Wow. And that was really scary for me, and still kind of is. I will be totally honest. I'm still like, what if they disqualify me for the silly things? And the impression that art critics tend to want to have the people submitting is like, you must follow these rules to the T, otherwise you're automatic disqualification, because we're here for, there's so many entries that we're going to receive. We don't have time for people who don't follow the rules. And so me being like, oh gosh, what if I just like, how do I know how to do this? So that was a really big doubt for me, as far as even entering. Because I remember photographing my piece and being like, I don't know, like, is this going to get me disqualified? Just the way I'm trying to present it. And so that was really the most significant thing. And there, you could enter, and either if you won, you could say either just your like personal email, or an email address where people could contact you if they were interested in your work, or a personal website. And most other people had websites, but I didn't realize that necessarily. I was just kind of like, oh, a website or an email address? Okay, I'll just do an email address. Oh, no big deal. They just want this for, like getting in touch with you, right? I didn't realize that I should have put it together. Oh, it's so that if people are interested, they can contact you. Like, somehow those things they walked through my brain and diverged in a yellow wood, never met. I didn't quite get that.
You were trying to figure out if the canvas was, if the wall was photographed or not.
Yeah, if I'd be disqualified for having wall showing, and because it wasn't a perfectly smooth wall either. It's my textured walls. So I'm like, I just don't even know. So I was just like, okay, like if I can just submit, that's a victory in and of itself. And so I'll just, personal email address. I don't even know if I'm going to be disqualified immediately. So I'm not going to worry too much about, website or email, like whatever, like people, what are the odds anyway? And then in that category, I won 3rd place. And so, and so they listed like the winners for each category, and, 1st through, I think, 5th place for each of the 3 different categories, I want to say, photography, and then there was the drawing, painting, and other things, and then the 3-dimensional sculpture art. And almost everyone else in that list, it was like their name, the name of the piece, the name of the artist, and then their website right there, like right in a row. And so mine was, and just my email address. And I was like, well, that's, I mean, fine. No, to my knowledge, no one did use it to contact me. But I was just like, oh, okay. So if I want to do this again, I should really go ahead and make some kind of website for this. But I also struggled with that website. It took me months to build, not just for the technicality of it through Squarespace, even with templates and a lot of help, it was difficult for me to figure out how to structure the website. What did I want to say? What did I want it to look like? And if I'm going to sell pieces, like setting up an e-commerce store. And I got really stuck on that last part where all these things I hadn't thought about of like, oh, do you want your personal PayPal account connected to your e-commerce store, or are you going to set up a separate one to keep your business and personal separate? And I was like, oh, tax implications. Didn't think about that. The IRS would want to know about that, wouldn't they? Interesting. Okay. Got it. This isn't like babysitting where you get money under the table. Like, oh, I see.
Yeah.
So it was like thinking about that, and I just got really stuck on that piece of the website building of like, what do I want to put up for sale, and what is it worth, and how do I price it? And I know that's a thing a lot of new artists struggle with. Trying to value your work. It looks like you have a question.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the timeline. When was the art contest? When did you find out about the winning? How long was the deliberate, like, can you just give me a little bit of a timeline for that?
Absolutely, sir. So I started working with dichroic glass in January of 2021. I believe it was June was the deadline for entering the contest, and it was announced, I want to say August of that year. And then 2021. Yeah, this is all the same year, within a few months of beginning. 5 months of starting, 5-6 months ish, give or take, I was entering that competition. So it was pretty fast. And then I started making that website soon after, and I didn't finish it until like a month ago. So, and I just kind of sat on it and didn't publish it because I was like, I don't know what to do. And then eventually I realized, hey, what if you just unselect the e-commerce store page part of it? Like, don't worry about that for now. Like, you don't have anything that you're exactly crazy about selling anyway, because I just like my pieces. So I'm like, I like them. How could I sell my children? And they're a part of me. So I was just like, oh, okay, I'll just publish the other parts that I've worked really hard on and just go ahead and make it live, except for that e-commerce piece. And I'll figure that out when I need to. So I think the lesson there was like, just get something up and make it a landing page, and that's fine. Like, that's enough. It's okay. I was just looking at other artists' websites in that list of people who had won and being like, oh my goodness, it's so professional. And so like, there's so much stuff and bio and all of these things. And so I was a little overwhelmed by seeing how like accomplished artists who had been doing this for a while structured their websites, and it just all looked a little intimidating, really, because I was like, I don't know how to do that. So I just kind of tried, and then I procrastinated, and because I was like, I don't know, so I'm stuck. And then again, the impetus for me actually going ahead and then publishing the site, minus the e-commerce page, was I got a notification about another art contest that I wanted to enter, and that was probably in what month are we in? That was probably this February, I want to say, that I got the notice for that. And I was like, oh, if I wanted to enter another competition with another gallery altogether, now I know I want to have something. I don't need to, but I want to have something more professional. And so that's when I was like, I'm pulling the trigger, everyone. And it was surprisingly easy to come back to and be like, oh, it was actually like basically done except for that page. I was just psyching myself out. So that's how that happened.
Very nice. And at some point in there, I think you also had some assistance from David with the
other brother
stuff. Yeah, another brother. For those who don't know, there's a lot of us, which is very helpful, because we all have a diverse skill set, and so yeah.
Yes, I had enlisted David's help sometime when I first started that website. So that, again, that's probably August, September, I want to say,
of 2021,
somewhere around there. 2021.
Yes.
And that I was like, I can't figure out these different things. Like, what do you think? And so yeah, I asked him, and he gave me some advice on like, oh, I think this color scheme looks better. And I
Mm.
think that, what if you try this? And I couldn't figure out how to make certain template elements like disappear. And
Uh,
so he helped me with a lot of that. Squarespace is definitely helpful, but it's still a bit of a learning curve for
mm,
sure. Even starting from a template, it's not easy.
yeah.
And their ads on YouTube make it sound like it is. So easy, whip it up in moments. No, no, no.
Wait, it still takes effort? Oh no.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, it really
huh,
does. So I definitely wouldn't want to mislead anyone. And oh yeah, spiffy website, no big deal.
yeah.
Turned that out in a day or two. Definitely not. That was the work of a number of weekends and then procrastinating for months because I couldn't figure out something else because I just didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And I was like, how could I have a website if I don't have anything to sell? Wait, that's not the point.
Mm,
Hmm.
huh.
Yeah.
So is the combination of having the right people that can help you and
Yes.
also having like an environment where basically everyone else is at a slightly higher level where you're like, oh crap, everyone else has a website. Perhaps that's a thing one should do as an artist. But then
Yeah.
hitting the like, but I need to sell stuff. Well, maybe I don't have to do that yet. And so it's
Mhm.
like not just doing the art, but then all the stuff that surrounds the art that can almost be the biggest, or it seems like that on each one of these steps is the biggest hindrance. It's not the creation of the art that's the hard part. It's the, can I follow the rules? Can I sell the thing? The tax, like all this other stuff is the biggest challenge. And so with what you're doing now, like what, obviously all Carrie's information, her Instagram and her website will be linked down below. So make sure to go and check that out. And if this is on YouTube, there'll be a little card or something to it as well. But like what is kind of your current thought processes? And for the record too, she may disagree with herself in like a year or 3 years. So this may end up being different. So just disclaimer. But at least from where you stand currently, what are the things that you're excited about in terms of creating for yourself, for others, and some of the maybe challenges or other external hurdles that you're like, oh, I know I'm gonna have to figure that piece out eventually. And but I guess firstly, just what are you excited about in where you currently are and what you're about to create?
Yeah, so again, about 3 weeks ago, I want to say, I had created a Reddit account, and I had kind of on a whim, I put a piece. I put a piece on a subreddit called Rainbow Everything because I was like, that fits. I feel at home here. These are my people. And because it's all like arts and crafts and other interesting things that people have made. It's just all things rainbow, which,
Hmm.
right in the title, really apropos. Uh, and I had put that on there because I was like, let me just see what happens, and almost 600 people upvoted that piece. And I was like, oh, and that's when I'd already had people, I would post to my Instagram story photos of my artwork. And I had multiple friends be like, ooh, let me know if you ever sell these. And I was like, this is like, it's to me, it was a little like having your mom be like, you're doing so good, sweetie. Where you're like, yeah, and also biased opinion. Not to discredit it, because I was really flattered when my friends would say that. I really valued that a lot. I had one friend who had said that like, I would legit, she direct messaged me in response to my story and said like, I would legit pay $1,000 for this. Like, this is amazing. And it
Hmm.
was the same piece that I posted to Reddit a couple weeks later, I want to say.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was like, oh, okay, so this is like really resonating with people, this kind of what technique that I had done. Because I just experimented. Every piece that I've done so far is utilizing different angles and different sizes of glass, now. So now I don't just use that 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch size. I have 4 inch by 6 millimeters, I want to say. So they're very long and skinny, little pieces. They're like little noodles, like little fettuccine noodles, but 4 inches long, and glass, so not for eating. And 1 inch squares as well, which are a lot heavier. That's a lot harder to support using putty. So I had to adjust how I was hanging the pieces, because there was not, you can't put them like a shelf with putty because they droop, they fall down. You have to have them be straight up and down against the canvas, and then they stay for those big pieces that are heavy, at least. So so I had to kind of figure that out as I went. So now I work with different sizes of glass. I also credit to the next glass vendor. Once I had used all the stock of one, I moved on to the next one. And if you ordered over $75 of glass, just to show you how much I was ordering at a time, they would throw in some scrap dichroic. So pieces that were left over from cutting from those big sheets. And just for funsies, because, you know, whatever. And they probably need to get rid of it too. So a free gift, and getting it off our hands. So I started working with, I have a piece that I used almost entirely scrap dichroic, which is basically free ish. It's not really free if you only get it when you spend money, but you know, extra thing I wasn't expecting. And so I started working with that. So that's something new and different that I'm doing a lot more work with now. Now I actually, once I got that interest on Reddit, where multiple people said, if you sell this, I will buy it. And I was like, oh, maybe I actually need to get serious about that e-commerce piece now. I might need to figure that out. And so that kind of spurred me to be like, okay, now in order to figure out how to sell pieces, because it's one thing to create them for myself when I can control all the conditions, I can be very careful with how fragile they are, put them out of paw's reach of the cats, you know, like I can control all of that and I can stick it to the wall and be happy with it. But it's a totally different thing to have to ship something fragile to someone. First of all, a canvas is fragile, and then the glass itself, like I had to then basically do the whole process over again recently of figuring out, okay, what kind of glass do I really want to keep investing in? Because as I've kept working, I've learned there are different grades of dichroic. The first sets that I worked with were a lower grade in a way. They're much more like, the color isn't as strong. As I moved to another vendor and they use a different type of coating, the color's much more vivid. That kind of glass was how I won that art competition. The colors were much more vivid. And so I was like, that's what I want too, because initially that's where I started doing this, was vivid color. So figuring out that, and then I took a chance, a couple of weeks ago, and decided, okay, I think I'm gonna try now Googling the heck out of where do I find white painted aluminum and like sheets of aluminum that I could use instead of canvas, because that would be much more rigid. The problem with cotton canvases and sticking glass to it is, again, it's rigid, but it's still fabric. So there's movement there from heavy glass pieces. And then how do I attach them? So I moved to a more rigid medium. Literally that came today, though I've been waiting 2 whole weeks for that order. So anyway, the having multiple people say, if you serious strangers say, if you sell it, I will buy it. That kind of jump started me into, okay, now I need to figure out how would I actually make a piece that I could not only safely ship to someone and have a reasonable degree of certainty that it would arrive intact, important, and also that it be adhered to a surface in a way that, again, would arrive intact, because these are heavy pieces of glass. Now, you wouldn't think so, but hanging, perpendicular, they are. They're only are supported by one side, and we know how floating shelves work. Like, there's actually a lot of engineering involved in that. So that necessity, mother of invention. Necessity is also the mother of Googling things real fast. And and that's what I did. I just Googled around industrial metal places, all the things. People there, I found, again, one vendor who makes this primed, so basically a sheet of aluminum composite. So it's pretty light, but very rigid. It's actually for like, a lot of people use that kind of thing for making like signs, that kind of material. But this is from an actual, that's what I was going to have to use, I felt like. But this is actually from an art place where people do also paint on aluminum. And so they have created these, they've primed it basically with white primer. So you could ostensibly get right to work on painting it. So that's what I ordered, because I was like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to see if this works. I ordered 2 of them. They offered in 2 different finishes. One is double primed. One is quadruple primed. I ordered one of each because I was like, I don't know. What do I? So again, it's kind of the like, well, I guess I'll have to ship it and see what happens and just experiment with it. So today, this evening, those 2 pieces arrived. I had to research how would you hang aluminum on a wall in an art kind of way, not as like a sign that I don't want to have to be welding in the living room. That seems unsafe. For one thing, the welding mask just isn't a good look for me. And I had to figure out, like, how the heck do people hang aluminum on a wall? Like, how would you do this as a reasonable consumer? Because so what did I do? I went back and looked, how does Chris Wood do it? How does she do it? Well, for one thing, when her pieces ship, sometimes they're as much as $600 to ship them. That's significant because they're huge, and I'm sure very carefully packed. And some of them are kind of like, well, you'll have to figure it out. And then from what I could see, like, it wouldn't tell you how you would hang it actually. And one of them was like, we'll professionally hang it for you. And so I was like, okay, so you're not giving away how you did this. I still don't know. So I just went and looked at, like, what do other people who paint on aluminum panels, how do they hang it on the wall? There's like different things. You can do a couple different things, like brackets that interlock, one that goes on the wall, one that goes on the back of the piece, and then they like sit in each other. And then I also found this one where it is like a keyhole kind of a thing. Basically, it's a block of wood and then another sheet of aluminum with that keyhole for a nail or a screw. But the block of wood comes first and then that sheet. So it stays flush with the wall and pops it out, which is a lot like the gallery depth canvas I've been using, because I want it to be out from the wall a little bit. It gives it more structural interest to me. So I researched all of that very quickly, very recently, and all the components, literally the glass, I ordered like $300 of glass.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how much, if you don't mind me asking, how much was the aluminum?
The aluminum was like 20 a piece, I want to say, because I only ordered 12 by 12. They're pretty small.
Okay.
I had been working in 10 by 10 canvas mostly, but this is 12 by 12 aluminum. The quadruple primed one was a little over 20 bucks. It wasn't too bad, but it took forever to ship. It really, like, Amazon has spoiled me. So you really got to think ahead with that kind of thing if it works out. So yeah, so that's where I am right now, is experimenting with this new medium. Tonight, this very evening, in fact, I did my first tester piece on the double primed aluminum. And it's posted to my story right now, actually.
Okay.
And I used the new glass, which is from a totally different supplier entirely, but the same coating manufacturer as the other one, I found out, CBS. But they had specified that it was like what grade of glass it was and what like much more technical specifications. And so I took a massive risk and ordered $300 at a time, because normally ordering like 20 squares at a time, they might run like $135 a piece ish, or maybe 165. I forget what it was exactly, but well over $1 less than $2 for each square was what it worked out to be. And so I found someone who would sell me those 1-inch squares for in bulk 150 at a time. So I wouldn't have to keep ordering and oh gosh, I can't finish this piece because I need another 20, So, because that's what I kept running into, was I would order glass and then I would get partway through a piece and I'm like, wow, I have used one of the second piece that I ever created has 83 pieces. So it's a lot. They go fast. So yeah, I ordered $300 of glass a couple weeks ago, and it all arrived, and I was sorting it yesterday evening, and today I did a tester piece. And it turned out magnificently. I think it's the best thing I've ever created, honestly. At this point, it's not to, maybe this podcast is about me a little bit, right? So I can say like, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Like, I love how it turned out. It's like, it's exactly what I wanted. Oh, and then I also had to research how I was going to affix said glass to the aluminum. So what I figured, I researched again. I know so much about adhesives now. My goodness gracious. I now know, I feel like I know everything about super glue versus hot glue versus all these other things that you could use to stick things to other things. And so I realized, though, I still love the freedom of putty, but putty is not going to support this glass if I want to be able to work in it. So I'm going to have to figure that out. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with what I know and do the pieces, straight up and down, vertically. Always have to think about what is vertical versus horizontal. Horizon.
Used vertical with Timon.
Lion King 1.5. I think you just kind of quoted.
Yeah, probably poorly.
You used a metaphor with Timon, I think.
There it is.
The line. But
Thank
yes. So I decided what I'll do is I will do half of kind of what I know, since I'm going on this grand new adventure. So I used putty to affix the pieces as a draft. So I could do it and figure out what I liked and take it all and do all the things. And then once I had something I was happy with, then I was going to use a permanent adhesive to get them to stick in place. And so that I have that piece, and it turned out better than I ever would have imagined. So I'm so glad I took a chance on that. It was $318 of glass, like, oh, my bank account. And so that's what I did. So now my first draft of that piece is complete, and I did it again as a let me just see what happens. And so I am going to have to, I think I might actually sell this piece if I don't keep it for myself. Again, I have such a problem with that. But if I'm not my biggest fan on this, who will be? I ask you. So I have to believe in myself first, and I love how this piece turned out. I don't have a name for it yet, but it is great. So now I'm in this weird phase of I did it that way. It's like a joke. It was a tester, and now it's the best thing I've ever made. And wow. So I'm going to each piece unstick them from their little pieces of putty, apply the adhesive, and stick them back on. And then I'm probably going to try shipping that to another of our brothers, Donnie, and his wife Sarah, who live in Florida, to see how much it's going to cost to ship this stuff. and if it can arrive in one piece.
Oh no.
So because I would want my customers to not, open a pile of broken glass, like only deliberately, only exactly where it's supposed to be.
Yes.
So that's the other thing that I have not figured out. How does one ship this in a way? Like I have some ideas, but
Yeah.
that glass sticks out like several inches. So what I'm going to do is like, I don't know. So I'm going to take it to a UPS store and ask them, how the heck would you do this? And I will rely on someone else's expertise and because I've researched, there are people who specialize in shipping paintings, but this isn't even a painting. You can't wrap like saran wrap over the top of it. Like, no, you can't do that. So yeah.
Wait, and so have you ever DM'd Chris Wood?
I actually did email her. I submitted a message to her site some time ago. I want to say it was after I don't remember if it was after or before I won that competition. I know it was right around that time that I was just like, I like to try and reach out to people who inspire me or who I think are doing great work and just tell them like, great job. You're so cool. I love it. Because I think that's important. Even if they have, lots of fans and everything, like who knows? So I did, I reached out to her and I was like, oh, I'm just really, I'm super inspired by your work and like, you're really cool. And just like, thanks for putting this out there, because as far as I can tell, no one else is doing this. And so you like took this chance and wow, look how gorgeous like these pieces are. Her pieces sell for like $6,000 to $8,000 a piece. So they're worth that in my opinion. They're gorgeous. So anyway, I don't know why I'm providing pricing information for her, but just in case anyone else is like, wow, I want that. I mean, like, yes, support her. Absolutely. So yes, I did reach out to her, but I did not get a response. So I might try again. But yeah, maybe eventually, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would encourage you to do that. And I also wonder if she would be able to provide any sort of help with the shipping question. Like, how the heck do you ship that stuff? But yeah, it's cool that you're going to ship that to Donnie and Sarah. That makes a lot of sense too. That's the farthest of all of us.
Yeah. And then reimburse them for shipping it back probably, because just to see what happens,
Oh yeah.
Because then you gotta basically run the experiment twice. So.
And so that's the other thing that I'm kind of seeing is not only is it try it first, but it's also you're doing all the investment of the money and all the trial and error up front. Because you're probably like what, at least $1,000 into this, including all the like plus more. So like
I'm sure.
That's something else that I remember just being like, the cost is usually more than you expected and you have to pay it sooner than you thought you would.
There's a lot of front loading costs. Yeah.
Yeah. And so probably by the time this is out, your first piece, because this is pre-recorded by at least a month, maybe two. So this first piece will probably be done and maybe shipped. So I would say check her website. There may be something for sale or there may not be, but check her Instagram for sure, because there will be something on there, at least pictures of the diacrylic glass. And so you'll have at least two, both the aluminum ones, I imagine you'll have something like that within the next couple months. And then you've got this competition that you're going to enter and anything else that you know about on the horizon that others would want to know about to be able to follow your journey.
Yeah. So at this point, if one is intrigued sufficiently by my art, then feel free to submit a message on my website in the contact me section, and just indicate like you want me to let you know when there's a piece for sale, because it occurred to me that would be a good efficient way of like just collect people who want to be notified when a piece goes up for sale, and then go ahead and notify them. So if you want that, let me know, and I will add you to the list of people who will know when I know.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for having this conversation, and these are things that I was like, I really wanted to know just as your brother. And also I realized that there's hundreds, if not thousands of other people that I think would be really interested in hearing this process, because I think people will see the result and be like, wow, it's so cool. And they'll be like, but I didn't know about the like 4-year-old with an easel in the garage doing that, and the 14-year-old like trying to draw stuff, and how a Jolly Rancher and getting stuck on a website for 5 months. And it's just cool to see the like, it only took 25 years for you to like be beginning to create like the thing or a thing that you just actually enjoy doing. And that takes a lot of courage to be willing to like go, here's my stuff that I'm not quite sure about yet, but I'm still gonna put it out here. And so that's really cool, and I'm really proud of you. And it's cool to see who you're becoming in that process of just having that courage and that vulnerability to go, it's not perfect. And that's a part of the beauty of it, of the like the reflection, if you will, of the, yeah. So thank you for being on here. I'm very grateful. And yeah, go ahead and check out all her links. They'll be in the description or the show notes if you're watching this on YouTube. And wherever you are watching this, if you have enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and give this a like. And if there's something that stood out to you, please comment or send one of us a DM on Instagram. That would be greatly appreciated. And I pray that we as people would be those who live by faith, are known by love, and are voices of hope, that we would dream great dreams and have the courage to go after them. Adios.
Bye.